Good evening, everybody, and welcome. So nice to see so many familiar faces. For those of you who don't know me, Simon Bergin, I am the IAM examiner for this immediate area. I am Road Smart. I have to keep adding the Road Smart bit because I forget, and that way I don't get the commission. Only joking. Couple of housekeeping things before we go anywhere. Obviously, fire exits, that door over there, that door just there. Toilets back of the room and to the left. Kitchen to the right if you want to make yourselves a cup of tea. Our plan is I'm going to rabbit at you for about an hour, then we're going to break for tea, and then I'm going to rabbit at you for another 45 minutes, and then you're going to throw a load of questions at me, I hope. Some of the stuff you're going to see, some of you would have seen before, sorry, but it's for newcomers as well, so not all of it will be completely new, and there's a few additions. Who am I? What do I do? My main job is I am a forensic collision investigator. So I deal with all the nasty crashes that people don't like to talk about. My job is to investigate them, to reconstruct them, and to try and make sense of them. Why did that collision occur? How did it happen? Is anybody at fault? Do we need to prosecute anybody? Or is it simply, as we like to term it in the office, a dodie? The dead one did it. Not a nice term, but that's the way we do it in the office, I'm afraid. Just a few pictures around the top of there, just to give you an idea of who I am and what I do. Top left is our current company car. It's a BMW 330d X-Drive. Produces about 300 horsepower, very fast car. One of the fastest cars we've ever had on the fleet, actually, because it's fairly light, but four-wheel drive as well, so it is very, very quick. Stood there with the police Ducati Panigale. That has now ceased service with us. Ducati give it to us every year. They very kindly update it. They just change the bodywork onto the newer frame. However, it's slightly delayed this year because the new V4 is out. That is due to come to us very shortly, and hopefully it will. At the bottom is a VIP escort training day. Cambridgeshire is one of few forces that have a VIP trained escort team. Because we get so many royal visits in the city, because of our connections with the university, obviously, we get regular attendances from royalty, and of course we now have the Cambridge's family, as they like to call themselves. William, of course, was based at the Air Ambulance. And we were having lots to do with that, and of course if various members visit, they have to have full protection and have to be escorted through to get them through Cambridge, and those of you who travel in Cambridge every day, we know what that's like. Our job on that, when we're doing VIP escorts, is very simple. It's to keep them moving, and they must not drop to less than 20 miles an hour. Because our firearms experts tell us at less than 20 miles an hour, they become very vulnerable to someone trying to take a pot shot at them. So our job is to keep that thing moving and get them through. It's probably the most exciting thing I do, VIP escorting, because I get to go really fast and do some really odd things, go wrong ways round roundabouts, head on with traffic, heavy goods vehicles, all sorts of things. Doesn't sound particularly good because it sounds a bit dangerous, but actually there's an awful lot of training that goes into it. And we're lucky that we are, like I say, one of the few forces that actually do it. In the centre at the top, the most important part of my life is my management team. My wife, she's sat in the middle tonight, not going to embarrass her, but there she is. You can wave to everybody and say hello. I beat her into coming tonight. I said, come on, you've got to come. It's really good. And she's thinking, oh God, what have I let myself in for? But there we are. And of course, Alison.
You paid for the extra people.
I did, yeah. Please show up, whatever happens. And Alison Thomas, who are my eldest daughter and youngest son. Yes, they've grown up a little bit since then and grown up faster than ever. They don't get any cheaper the older they get more expensive to run. Not Helen though, she's great, yeah. Okay, so roads policing then. I'll give you a little bit about what's happening at the moment with regards to roads policing in Cambridgeshire and the wider area. As you will know, for those of you that attended my talks before, we are now part of a collaborated unit. Okay, we have what we call now specialist services. Specialist services includes firearms, dogs, scenes of crime, roads policing, and various other small aspects of the policing family. We are split and managed by our own management team that are responsible to all three chief constables and police and crime commissioners. So it's quite a complicated political mix. We don't thankfully get involved too much in that bit. My job simply is someone dies, I go and sort it out, measure it and put it all back together. It's that simple. However, what we do have now is we have two operational bases across all three counties. One, as it says up there, is at Stevenage. That's where the southern traffic base runs from. And we have the other one at Huntingdon. Between them, they cover all three counties. That is a very large area, okay? Our minimum staffing is 20 across all three shifts. However, that is coming down as of the end of April. As of next week, we are reducing down to 16, possibly, but we'll see what happens with that. But generally we're trying to put out 6 double crew cars to cover the area, and we split them north, middle and south, so we get as best cover as we possibly can, working of course with our colleagues who are based down in Hertfordshire. We're taking on more of a casualty reduction focus now. We're trying to deal with people before they make the mistakes. We often find ourselves dealing with the aftermath. Certainly in my world, I'm always going to things that have already happened that perhaps could have been prevented. We're really trying to find out and drill down into driver behaviour, find out why it happened and how it could have been avoided, and more importantly, getting there before it actually happened. So trying to re-educate people. You'll notice over many years now we've had different courses for excessive speed, mobile phones, there's now motorway courses, there are all sorts of different things that are coming out where they are trying to re-educate you. Rather than punish you with points, they are making you pay for a course or something to develop your psychological behaviour when you're a driver or a rider or a lorry driver, whatever it might be. Because we know that as far as the habitual parts of driving are, they haven't really changed. Okay, people are still doing the same old things that they've always done, which is why I still have a job. And we haven't really got into that and changed it very much. So we're trying to look at that more and more. How can we, with the small numbers that we have an impact on the overall driver behaviour of people out there in the bigger world? And one of my favourite phrases whenever I give a talk is always, don't forget when I'm talking about this, I'm not talking necessarily about yourselves, but the people you are sharing the road with. That's what you've got to bear in mind, particularly as motorcyclists, because you are vulnerable, you know that, I don't need to tell you, but you are sharing the road with these people. Okay, so it's potentially they are a danger to you. Interestingly, and this is something again that hasn't changed for years, as a nation we spend more on hiring solicitors and clever lawyers or barristers to defend our poor driving behaviour than the whole of Europe put together. Okay? We will try and tackle our misbehaviour by fighting it through the courts. Instead of putting our hands up saying, yeah, it was me, I was silly, shouldn't have done it, and just paying the fine and taking the points or whatever it might be, we always try and have a go. Always. Okay? All road users have to start taking responsibility for their actions, okay, and their poor behaviour. You'll notice over the last certainly 2 years there's been an awful lot in the press ramped up about driver behaviour with regards to cyclists and cyclist behaviour with regards to drivers. We live in Cycle City or around it. Cambridge is one of the busiest in the country for having cyclists present and on our roads and shared with us. We recently had a campaign in the county which was called Close Pass. I don't know if any of you saw it. We did several bits on the news. We went on the newspapers. We did radio interviews and things where there's basically a map that's laid out, and the idea is we demonstrate to drivers where we'd expect you to be with a cyclist. Now, of course, that's all very well and good on a nice wide road, but how does that work when you're in somewhere like Cambridge City Centre, when you've got 6 or 7 cyclists and one vehicle wishing to get past or do something? And our take on it is really, yes, you should always give room, yes, you should always take care because they are a vulnerable road user, as you should with a motorcyclist, but what about sharing? Okay, we've all got to get somewhere, we're all trying to get somewhere. Okay, so we need to share the road, and it's about trying to encourage people to think more about, it's not your road, it's our road. We've all got to share it, we've all got to get somewhere, and let's try and do it safely. The justification for doing certain things or injudicious actions, in other words, when you're speeding or when you're using your mobile phone, we as a nation and as people generally as drivers, not necessarily riders so much, but more drivers, have a nasty habit of making sure we can justify what it is we're doing because we know we're doing something wrong. Okay? I didn't speed yesterday or the day before or the day before that, but today I'm really in a hurry. I've really got to get there. I'll just speed today because today it doesn't matter because I was good for all the other days. Or when you're out with a group of friends on your motorbikes, the person at front is going a little bit quick, but because you think, I know they're a good rider, I know they're good at what they do, I'll go a little bit quick today as well because I'm all right because they're at the front and they know what they're doing. And we tend to justify our actions by using all sorts of very clever excuses. And it's all up here in the mind is how we do it. We're just into this justification role, which is fraught with danger, obviously. 4 collision causes resulting in death have not really changed over the years. And we're seeing it the same again this year. The main thing that has changed, we had one of our worst years last year for fatal road traffic collisions in the county. One thing that featured in more than 1/3 of our fatalities was drugs. drug driving is becoming a big problem. Now everybody started to say, hang on a minute, that's because you've got drug wipes and you can detect drug driving. It's got nothing to do with the drug wipes. We're dealing with people drug driving because we're stopping cars that are doing things they shouldn't be, like a drink driver would, driving over the white lines, erratic, slow, fast, etc. But the drug driving is actually being discovered either at post-mortem samples, so when we've got a dead body and we've taken blood from them, or when they're being investigated because they've had a fatal collision and therefore we have then gone through the route of getting blood, etc. from them at the police station, which we have the power to do. And it is featuring very, very heavily. Okay? Drink driving hasn't really changed. It's still happening all the time.
Is that mostly illegal drugs or is it prescription drugs?
Bit of both. Bit of both. Mostly illicit drugs, so mostly illegal stuff, yeah. Use of mobile telephones. As you're aware, the legislation changed and they upped the ante, 6 points and double the fine. From what we see with our ticket numbers that we're issuing, it hasn't really changed. Okay, we are still seeing the same sort of number of tickets being issued for people who are still driving whilst using their mobile telephones. And again, with fatalities, we're detecting phone use more and more. Some of you would have seen recently the headlines from the M1 that was just outside of our area, thankfully, with the minibus. They got hit well, it stopped behind a goods vehicle and then got collected, basically. The goods vehicle driver at the front, he couldn't drive any further because he was too drunk to carry on. That's always a good place to be when you're driving a 44-ton heavy. And the chap behind didn't see what was unfolding in front of him. The reason he didn't see what he was doing in front of him, or had lost concentration on what was happening in front of him, because he'd been on his phone for nearly an hour. He'd been in a conversation with somebody. And as I've said before, people always think a handheld mobile phone is the one that is dangerous, which it is, and you shouldn't do it, but it's no different if you've got hands-free. It's just as dangerous because you're not inside the vehicle. The moment you're connected to a call, your brain is not capable of disconnecting itself with where it's going to. Okay, you are now in that conversation, you are now on that site, you are now wherever you are. You're back at home, wherever it might be. You lose the concentration outside of the car. Short, clipped conversations won't cause you a problem, but the moment you start getting into long, drawn-out conversations, you're in trouble. Anybody here got Bluetooth in a crash helmet and actually connect their phone? Don't worry, I'm not going to jump on you. You do. Do you have your phones connected?
Yeah.
You do. You tried using it when you're riding?
It's horrible distraction.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah. If you've tried it, I've never bothered. I don't even tether it. I have got a Bluetooth helmet, but I don't bother with it. I have it so I've got comms between myself and pillion, but I don't have it with the phone because it's just distraction. I use it for the sat nav. That's very handy, but other than that, don't bother. I find it too much for distraction. Failing to wear an operational restraint, i.e. a seatbelt, okay, if there's something fitted to it and it works, then you should be wearing it. But again, we're still seeing many, many people that aren't wearing them. Okay, they're out there, they're not doing it, and they're dying simply because they didn't clunk click, which is bizarre. After all this time, you think it would be automatic. How many of you would actually get in a vehicle and not put your seatbelt on? I should think most of you just do it automatically. I think you probably have to think harder not to put it on, I would suggest. But there are people out there still don't wear it, particularly our younger drivers. They clip them in and then they sit on them because it stops the beeper on the dashboard going on. It's not cool to wear a seatbelt apparently, but there we are. Excessive speed for the circumstances, well, there we are. I'm very careful with this one. It's not just about excessive speed, it's excessive speed for the circumstances. Okay, what is a collision, effectively? What is actually a collision? It's an event where a driver or rider or other road user has failed to deal with the circumstances immediately faced by them. Simple as that, in the correct way. That is what it is. And all of those 4 things prevent you from doing that. Drink and drugs then. Some of you would have seen these slides from last year. It's one of my favourites actually because this is a bit of a fascinating case for us. The tyre marks on the left that are marked out by these little just centre line cat's eyes that we use for capturing pictures and for the scanner to do its work. They were left by this vehicle here and they are rolling tyre marks. That tells us a couple of very important things. If they're rolling tyre marks, one, the soil has not been disturbed and the grass has been rolled flat. It's not been torn, it's not been moved around in any way, so there's no steering input. So straight away as a collision investigator, when I see lines like that, I know the person in that car hasn't done anything. They're about to be faced with complete and utter annihilation, but they failed to brake or steer. Okay? So straight away I'm thinking, it was a collision that was located and actually found at about 10 to 5 in the morning. The reason for it is, just behind this set of trees, right over in the distance up here, is a set of farm cottages. In there was a chap who was a highways agency road worker. He was getting up for his early shift, going off to work at 5 o'clock that morning. He drove down the concrete drive and thought, well, that car shouldn't be there. It wasn't there yesterday when I came home, and it definitely shouldn't be there now, and it shouldn't be parked like that. And like I say, he just lived in these cottages down here. He stopped, looked at the vehicle, got his phone out, about to phone the police, walked around the other side, and then he realised just this side he could see the head of a dead person. That chap, interestingly, he was a night shift worker at Stansted Airport. When we visited his next of kin and spoke to her, and we revealed to her several weeks later, we've now had his blood back, and we know for a fact that he had some drugs in him, and it was quite high concentration. We said, are you aware that he is a drug user? Oh yes, she said, fully aware. Right, okay. She said, when he has his cereal before he goes off on his night shift, routinely, any of you aware of what Canderel is? They're like the spoonful, low-fat sugar stuff, sugar substitute, a bit like powder. He was having a dessert spoon of that on his Weetabix before he went to work. Amphetamine is what it was. Putting a spoonful of that on his Weetabix, which gives him a massive high. The only trouble with amphetamine is, when it goes off and it finally gives you the low, it drops off really quickly. This poor chap missed his turning. This is actually the St Ives on-slip at Galley Hill, heading towards Huntingdon. He'd missed his turn because he was supposed to come off at St Ives because he was falling asleep. Having missed his turn, he then fell asleep completely, left the road, rolled the car over. The car survived very, very well. The actual occupancy, the actual passenger occupant cell, okay, the part that keeps you alive and keeps you safe, was intact. So what killed him? No seatbelt. Because he had no seatbelt on, he came out the side of the car and it landed on his head. Well, actually, it landed across his chest and he couldn't breathe. He suffocated. So his actual cause of death on the death certificate is suffocation, sadly. Wasn't from an injury in the crash. Had he had his seatbelt on, he'd have got out of there and run away because he'd know we'd be coming to find him. Had we?
He would have survived. He
would have survived, yeah, absolutely. The passenger occupancy cell was completely intact, no intrusion into it whatsoever. In fact, when the car was righted, they were able to drive it onto the low loader. It had some damage, yes it did, don't get me wrong, but it was intact. He should have walked away from it. Anybody know what he did for a living? Just out of interest, some of you might remember from last year. Worked at Stansted. He was an aircraft engineer, yeah, worked on the engineering side. Yeah. So there you are, next time you're flying, just have a quick tap of the tyres and take your spanners with you, quick check, yeah, fears are all right, wings are on, we're good to go, yeah. And when it takes off, just pray he was nowhere near it, yeah, well, there we are, he won't be ever again. So, mobile phones then, who remembers this one from last year? Remember the story of this very nice young lady? Yeah? Okay. The poor chap driving this car in his early 20s, finished working in the family shop and was going home and driving towards Peterborough. Completely oblivious to the fact of his presence on the road was our lady driving the blue Jaguar. Our innocent party in all of it as well was, of course, the poor man in the Tesco's lorry coming the other way, who was instantly suspended by the company because he's been involved in the crash, and that's their policy. No matter whether you're right or wrong, no matter what we told them, they said he is responsible. So, those of you that are squeamish, look away now. This is very interesting. This is our lady coming to get petrol. All she wants to do is fill her car up. Okay? There's the ambulance that comes back to the scene. You'll see very shortly a Tesco's lorry come into frame, and he is on full ABS braking, the cab actually bouncing because he's braking so bloody hard, because he's got a blue Peugeot coming towards him that he cannot do anything about. Not a nice day. Not a nice day, bless her. It is a bit windy. Brake, 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 bang. That's him dead. What's she doing? I want petrol. So I'm going to bloody get petrol. There's a bloke dying in that car. Yeah, but I want petrol. Okay, love, you crack on. Never, ever, ever came forward to the police. We had to track her down. We had to go through great lengths to track her down. Interesting, the guy in the fluorescent jacket, you'll see him wandering around like a complete loony, like he's lost. That's the Tesco's driver. He's in so much shock, bless him. He cannot cope. He's falling apart at that point. He even goes over and starts moving the diesel tank in a minute from the Peugeot that got spat out, which is that big lump of plastic you can see that he's walking over towards. Look, he's in total shock, that man. Doesn't know what, he just can't do anything. Can't do anything. And that's where we turn up and say, right, Don't worry, we'll sort this for you. She's still getting her petrol, look, bless her. She's ever so good. She won't be late. She'll get it done. No problem at all. Come on, wakey, wakey. So, oh, it's gone backwards on me. Our lady, Marina Yusacheva was her name. She'd been in Wisbech visiting some friends, or should I say associates, let's use that word, because she'd been picking various things up, and she was on her way back to Peterborough. When I interviewed her, what was key to us was finding out her journey, what she'd done and how she'd done it, because I knew a little story about that mobile phone that I found in the footwell with the battery removed and the cover off, which is always a bit of a suspicion to me. Why have you got a phone in your car with the battery off and the cover off? I know why, because you don't want Mr. Policeman finding out you've been using it while you're driving. Little does she know. So, when I interviewed her, we got her in the interview room and we said, what sort of journey did you have? Well, it was uneventful, she said. Okay. Anything happen on the journey? No. Was the car okay? Absolutely fine. Did you stop anywhere? No, I didn't. Are you sure? Absolutely. I left Wisbech and I never stopped until the crash happened. Okay. Didn't stop in any lay-bys? No, no. Stopped for fuel? No. Didn't have to stop at all. From the moment you left Wisbech, you drove all the way to that crash scene. Yes, she said. Good, I thought. Little did she know. Little did she know. At that point, we adjourned the interview and we stopped. Went outside, spoke to her solicitor and said, right, we are now going to present you with some mobile phone usage. Not for one phone, but for two phones. Because unbeknown to her, she'd volunteered this phone and left it in the footwell of the car with the battery off and the cover off. The other phone that she had, she'd hidden in her back pocket. And what she didn't realise was, of course, we would get the CCTV from the garage. And the following day when we're watching it back going through it, I'm aware she's talking on a mobile phone. Somebody suddenly thought, well, we've got a mobile phone. Whose is that? Well, she must have borrowed it from somebody. No, she hadn't. She'd got two mobile phones. Who has two mobile phones? Anybody here? You do. Why have you got one, Lenny?
I've got work one, I've got my personal one.
Yeah, good. So have I. But you're not a drug dealer, are you? No, lovely. Just checking. Good. No, good. As a police officer, I have two. I have my on-call phone, or my death phone as I call it. It goes to bed with me on my bedside table, only rings if someone has a big crash. And I've got my own personal phone that everybody can contact me on from the family, etc., which I use most of the time, but not when I'm driving. But she had two phones because the friends she was meeting in Wisbech were her associates who she bought her drugs from, and she was making her way back to Peterborough, sorting out where she was going to drop them off and what deal she was going to do. And she was having texts and phone calls all the way from Wisbech back to Peterborough. Something like 7 or 8 text messages were received and sent, and a further 3 or 4 phone calls made. She maintained that little blue car pulled out of the garage in front of her and she had nowhere to go. But of course the CCTV revealed that's not the case at all. The CCTV revealed that the car in fact was right in front of her, there to be seen, and she just hit it up the arse and pushed it straight into the Tesco's lorry. Just like that. Simple as. Mobile phones. Don't you just love them? So, seatbelts then. Yes, we've already talked about our friend, haven't we? The times I've attended collisions where we stood there, looked at the vehicle, looked at the crash situation and said, they'd be here. They'd be here now, right now. No question at all. Okay, we have all sorts of cases that come through the year where we see these things going on. Excessive speed. Somebody remember this one from last year? Linton, A1307, out towards Haverhill, piece of dual carriageway. This lady here, 123 miles an hour around that left-hand bend when she lost control. Went off, hit the trees, and it burst into flames. But interestingly, completely by surprise, because we had no idea at the time, obviously, because their bodies were so badly burnt and things, we couldn't do a great deal with them, but they managed to get post-mortem fluid out of them, and they found out that she was twice the drink-drive limit. So not only was she doing over 100, 120 miles an hour, that's her minimum speed, I should add, minimum. Her skid marks start in the left shot, they continued round and went off, and we can do a calculation of curved skid marks, and when she hit the tree, she's gone across the banking and everything else. I can't put a calculation in for the reduction in speed for the tree, nor can I for where it goes across the verge and through some hedgerow either. But what I did know was from the moment it left the tarmac, that point there, the minimum speed was 123. So you're probably looking at 140 miles an hour. Excessive speed for the circumstances and drink driving all put together. So we see these things, like I say, fairly regularly. Other emerging trends. Some of you would have seen again on the TV, in the newspapers locally, we're seeing a lot of elderly drivers who are getting confused and finding themselves going the wrong way on dual carriageways and motorways. It's happening an awful lot, an awful lot. We're seeing a lot of people that are on some fairly good medication that does the job that it's meant to do for their illness, but of course what it says on the bottle is do not operate heavy machinery, and as I've always said, and it's one of my favourites, what is a car or a motorcycle? If one of you would like to go outside, there's a Kawasaki ZX1000 just outside. Would someone like to go and pick it up and walk around with it? I'd suggest that's a heavy machine. If you've got a bottle that says do not operate heavy machinery, that means you can't ride one of those, or you shouldn't be driving, but people do. We see it all the time, and of course they have these big crashes. We do a bit of investigation, lo and behold, we get their medical records, and there it is. Should not be driving, albeit it's not prescribed.
What does the law say about that, Simon? They shouldn't be driving?
Well,
Is it
the way what we would do is look at impairment. If there's someone that's still alive, we would look at whether they're impaired or not, and if we found out they had medication that they were on at the time, we would take professional advice on that. So if it's a serious injury collision or a fatal road traffic collision, we would be simply going to the medical profession and saying we have a bank of experts basically we can go to and say this person was taking this, this and this. Should they have been driving? Would this potentially have had an effect on their ability to drive a motor vehicle? And we would get that back, and they would say most likely yes or most likely no. Or but what we often get from the scientific world, sometimes they don't like to pin the tail on the donkey. They sometimes leave it that worse to the effect of everybody has a different reaction to certain medications or drugs. This level in an ordinary person would be this, but for them, if they're used to it, etc., it might not cause them any impairment whatsoever. So we kind of end up with this, what should we do with it? But at the end of the day, my advice is very simple. The reason the drugs companies don't tend to put on the bottle, do not drive, is we wouldn't take them, because most people need to drive. But if it says don't operate heavy machinery, I suggest really, you probably shouldn't be doing it. It's not ideal. We have an older driver population, as someone mentioned to me earlier. Yes, I'm now star of stage and screen. I have had my name in lights, haven't I, for my sins, doing the older driver programme with Channel 4. Very revealing that was, if I'm honest, really revealing. Some of the people I met, fantastic people, really fantastic people, and actually good drivers. The jeweller from London that I met and spent some time with, I spent a day. These little clippets of film you see, they take a day. It's really frustrating when you go watch it back on the telly. I'm there for about 6 minutes and I'm thinking that's a whole day I've been there doing that. But they were fascinated, and he in particular, he drove in London every day, drove to his jeweller's shop in Hatton Garden, bless him. And he was perfectly capable, really good, tidy driver, fully aware, good eye movement, good neck movement, looking around all the time, knew exactly what he was doing, and bless him, the only thing I could pick him up on was he kept driving in the centre of all the lanes. So wherever we were, if it was a 3-lane section in London or something like that, he'd always be in the middle, despite if there was any traffic down the left or the right or whatever. So I just said, just one thing, I said, just a quick query, you seem to be driving down the middle all the time, always down the centre lane, whereas really perhaps the left might be better. Yes, he said, but because I don't know where I'm going today and you're going to give me directions, I'm ready to go either way. Boy, bless him, a thinking driver. I thought, I quite like that answer actually. I really quite like it, bless him, he was really good. Then I had the lady from Norwich, if you saw her, she was 105, drove a yellow Mini Cooper, right? Now, I first met this lady, I turned up, stopped the car, get out, film crew there, putting all the cameras and things on her car, because she had one on the inside, on the bonnet, they're everywhere, these things. And, oh, she's really looking forward to meeting you, go out the back, she'll, welcome you, there's tea and coffee and things out there, go and have a chat with her, So off I go out the back, what's she doing? Cutting the grass, with a lawnmower. 105, yeah? Not bad at all. So then, me being the knight in shining armour that I am honestly, I go out to the Mini. They've closed the gates now because they're big wooden gates at this house she's got on the top of the hill in Norwich. And I walk out there, I said, I'll just get the gates for you. Her reply, oh, no, you won't, she said. I thought, best I don't touch the gates then. Walked back towards the car and got in. She said, you help yourself to the car, she said, make yourself comfortable. Right you are, I thought, there she goes, gets these big wooden gates, bolt in. I'll let them close them when we're gone, she said, and off we go. And she was great, absolutely brilliant. And there's a bit in the filming, if you watched it, where we have to turn up this road to go up the hill. It's the only hill in Norwich, only hill in Norfolk. Up the hill to the top to go to her house. And she comes around now, I'm thinking, we're turning right here, she's got her indicator on, she's looked, mirrors, yeah, we're clear to go, there's nothing coming down the hill. I like this bit, she says, it's a bit like Brooklands. It reminds me of that place, she said. Whoop, up this thing we go. Oh, God, a good girl, go on, why not? It was great, she was wonderful, she was. Still our oldest driver as well. She is the oldest driver in the UK as far as I'm aware still, bless her. Our jeweller didn't make it this year, did he, bless him? He passed away, sadly. We're going to have a cup of tea now. Bit early. let's go for it. Break time. Okay, we're all there. Everybody sat down and suitably refreshed. Marvellous. Part 2. I'm going to start talking about motorcycling now. Oh. Okay. What makes a good rider then? Come on. Some of you here are very well established advanced motorcyclists. I want these answers coming thick and fast. What makes a good rider? This is part 1, slide 1 of the Bike Safe course. So it's set fairly low. Come on. I want it and I want it right now. Observations. What do you think is the first line that always gets people sinking down in their chair? Bear in mind I've got a room full of 25 people at police headquarters looking at me with my police uniform on going, oh, he's asking us a question. What do we do? What do we do? What do we say? They hide, they do. They sink down, they don't want to say anything because they know might know what's coming. And I scare the shit out of them. I've sworn on the camera. I get that out. Yeah, down you all go, oh my God. And I say something along the lines of, please tell me what is rule 126.
I've got one in pristine condition as well.
Have you? Yeah, I've got boxes of them. So, what is rule 126, ladies and gents? Come on, don't be shy. You got here tonight and you've used it, I guarantee you. Rule 126. Come on, who knows it?
Drive on the left.
Drive on the left, yeah. Good one. Good one.
Stick with the speed limit.
Stick to the speed limit, yep.
Slow down if you see a police car.
Slow down if you see a police car. Or speed up, depending on what you've got on board. Rule 126. Something along the lines of, you must be able to stop in the distance you can see to be clear. On your own side of the road. Well done. And correct me if I'm wrong, you're not an advanced motorcyclist, are you? No. They aren't yours, you're not. You should have got that. Come on. Right, okay. So, knowledge of the highway code. This stuff, honestly, you'd be surprised. When I do deliver this, and I deliver it at Bike Safe, you'd be amazed at the faces around the room when I get the highway code out. You can see all these people think, oh my God, no. You know, and you get the odd person. The last one I had was 15 pages, and it was buff coloured. You know, it's moved on a bit from then. You do get one or two who are quite good at it, because they've got sons or daughters or relatives they're helping pass their driving test. So they have read it. It's rare, but they have read it. And it's quite good. I've never had anybody yet tell me what rule 126 is. The day it happens, I should probably just walk out the room and throw the highway code in the corner. So, knowledge of the highway code then. Very, very important. Good level of concentration. You must concentrate all the time. As I say, from the moment the key is in the ignition and the lights have come on and you've pushed start, that is switched on to that task. Riding and riding only. You don't need to think about anything else. It doesn't matter. Because whatever it is you're going to be thinking about is the situation you will face at the end of your ride, not the one on the way to get there. So think about it, concentrate all the time. Accurate observation skills. Please tell me, what is the state of the roads at the moment? Bad. Bad? So that's bad. Just because the camera's on, you can be honest. Okay?
My car's here because he probably nearly lost it in one of those potholes.
Potholes, yeah, disappear, don't they? It's trouble, you see. If you drove a proper car with big seats in, you'd be able to see over them and you'd be able to see the... You should have bought the other one that goes through them. Yeah. No, seriously, potholes out there at the moment, they're tyre killers, wheel killers, motorcyclists coming off kind of things, you know, they're nasty. There's some big ones out there. You've got to have accurate observation skills. The way we teach it in police circles and the way they teach it in advanced riding circles, driving as well, no different. Main beam, dip beam. Get your eyes up. Where's the road going? What's it doing? Plan ahead. Eyes down. What's the road surface doing? Particularly at the moment because it is poor. A14, even on major roads, any of you ride at night, you've got to be very, very careful because there's some big gaps opened up in the middle of the lanes. I regularly commute home on the A14, M11, and there's bits of the A14, thankfully they've just resurfaced them actually, but round St Ives Way there are huge, huge gaps opening up. You have to be ever so careful because they'll have you off your bike, no problem at all. Appropriate use of speed and control, that's all about being smooth and accurate. Smooth and accurate, because it's relevant, it's always important. You want to be smooth, you want to be accurate with everything that you're doing. And good hazard perception skills. Another question, what is a hazard?
Anything that may cause you to change course or speed.
Top man, well done. Anything that causes you to change your course, speed or position. Okay, they're the top things. It's anything you look at and think, oh, would we all perceive the same hazard as the same threat? No, we wouldn't. Depends on your skill ability, depends on what time of day it is, what your psyche's like, what you're thinking about. Okay, we may look at something and go, oh, don't like the look of that. Others may just ignore it. Okay? But it's anything that causes you to alter your speed course position. Acting on identified risks. What are identified risks? What is an identified risk?
Things that you see.
Things that you see? Almost. People, things that you don't see. They're actually things that you are already aware of before commencing your ride. So what could that be? Something really obvious. And some of you will definitely shrivel now when I say rain, because you're, oh, don't go out in the rain. I know you do. But there's a lot of people that don't actually, and not riding in the rain isn't necessarily a good thing, because riding in the wet makes you incredibly accurate. Because you have to pick your lines, you have to be very deliberate about where you put your tyres, because you've only got two, and the contact patch with the ground is about that much. I could do my silly dance, that one. You know what that is? Yeah, car. That's what you got on each corner. One of them on each corner, roughly. With the bike, you've got the tips of your fingers. You have to be really, really accurate and know where you're going to put your wheels and tyres. Very important, because if you don't, you can lead yourself into problems. Identify risks, something you know about or are predisposed to. So, for instance, you will all have your local pothole, I'm quite sure. You all go down that road, you go, oh, that's where that pothole is, I must not go through that. Where there's gravel or grit dropped, I know for a fact when I leave here or I'm riding on the bike come late August, early September time, there's a grain store in Little Shelford. Where the trailer comes in and out of there, there's grain all over the road. Do you ride over it really fast? No, you don't, because it's like ball bearings and I'm on the floor. There's those little things, they are identified risks. So the day you ride out your driveway, get to the first junction and fall off on that swage of gravel that's always down the middle, is the day you're not acting on identified risks, because you know it's there. Okay, they're the things you should think about. Where the cars are parked on the corner all the time, that sort of thing. Aware of all limitations. That is you, that is the road environment, and that is the bike you are riding. Okay, very, very, very important. You need to be aware of what your limitations are and not ride beyond them. Skillful use of machine controls. Who here rides with a pillion? Hands up. Yep, a few of you. Good. Smooth. Pillions don't like this. They really don't. You get the old helmets going like this at the back. You know you're doing something wrong. Okay, smooth it out. Ease and squeeze with the throttle. Try not to use the brakes. If you have to brake, brake. All right, but try and use throttle sense. Ease and squeeze all the time. Right attitude to your own and others' safety. Who rides angry? Don't do it. You will always win. Look at the machinery out there. Okay, it's fast. No matter whether you want to ride it fast or not, it is very, very capable. You do not need to get into arguments or wranglings with car drivers, because you will always, always win. That's partly the reason we ride motorcycles, because we still have the freedom of the open road. Okay? Don't forget that. Very, very important. So, passing your advanced motorcycle test, for those of you that haven't yet and are thinking about it. There are 4 key elements you will hear me give you at briefing, and it's a well-practiced thing that I say all the time. Some of you here have heard it. I know. It needs to be good. So it needs to be an advanced ride, what you've been trained by your tutors to deliver. When you come to me, you are the ready, polished article. Okay? Don't go doing anything different just because you're on test. That's when it all goes wrong. You've practiced it, you've nailed it, your tutors, and they've done a cross-check with you, have said, you can get this, it's in the bag, you're good enough. If they say you're not, get some more training. Don't waste your time. I'm happy to come out with you, all right, but don't waste your time. Okay, if you're good enough, they'll tell you you're good enough, trust them, they know what they're doing. Okay, but it needs to be good and it needs to be consistent. We make mistakes, we are human beings, okay? When the ride starts to when the ride finishes is the bit I look at. Not the fluff you have in the middle with the one junction you didn't quite get right, all right? I look at the whole ride from start to finish. The perfect ride does not exist at any level, okay? I promise you it doesn't. It goes without saying, it must be safe. It must be safe at all times. You must not put yourselves on offer for test purposes, okay? The test is not make or break on whether you get an overtaking or not. A lot of people think, I must get an overtaking. No, you don't. As long as you're looking and you're trying, if there's not one there, there's not one there. If everything's travelling at 60 miles an hour, you can't go past it. Simple as that. As examiners, we're now encouraged more and more. Gone are the days of just get one in. If it's impeding your ride, just get one in. If you have to pinch a bit, just crack on, don't worry about it. We don't do that anymore. It must be done within the 60 miles an hour, okay? All right? It needs to be safe, but don't put yourself on offer just for my benefit, all right? It must be systematic. That's what you're training to do. All your braking, gear changing must be done in a straight line before you get to the hazard. And that's any hazard. Bend, roundabout, parked vehicles, whatever it might be. All your braking is done in a straight line. As I've already said, you've only got that little bit there to work with. If you start asking the bike to go around the corner, brake and change gear at the same time, things will go wrong, particularly if it's wet. All right? So, do it systematically. Think about what you're doing. And it should be very, very deliberate. It should look very, very smooth. And it must be with purpose where appropriate. Again, one of the failures on tests sometimes that I see is people just ride within themselves. All right, your tutors have taken you out and got you up to a really good skill level. You're riding down roads that may be familiar to you, may not be when we go on our test routes. And you've been rattling off down those at 60 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour around that right-hander, but on test you suddenly think, hey, I'm on test. I'll go at 10 mile an hour off, I'll be nice and accurate, and I'll just, I sit there going, my God, I'm so bored. Okay? Secondly, you'll start turning into that 50 mile an hour bend at 40 miles an hour. Where is your positioning going to be at? I'll tell you where it'll be at. You'll be across the white line. I don't normally do that. You did today. Okay? Don't do anything different just because I'm behind you. It's just another check run, really. Just another, yes, the final tick in the box, you're good to go. Okay? So don't go reinventing the wheel when it comes to test. You really don't need to do it. And I'm not a hard taskmaster. I want you to do well. Information then, as I've already said, main beam, dip beam. Okay, get those observations in. There are loads of opportunities for you to demonstrate to me where your observations are. People think when they're on test, well, how does the examiner know where I'm looking? It's easy. There are places I take you, I know if you're looking or not. Because I'll see what your bike does. I'll see your shoulders go up like this and go, oh, panic, or down again, all right? When you see that bus coming towards you, you see the top of it and you can't see the bottom of it. All right, I know what to look for. I've been doing this a long, long time. All these things are obvious to me. They're not obvious to you because you're not thinking about it, but I'm looking for it. So I'll know where you're looking. I'll know when you look to put yourself right over to the near side around that tight right-hander because you've seen the tractor and trailer with the orange beacon on, way over in the distance coming the other way, and you've planned ahead and gone, that bugger's going to meet me right in the middle of this left or right-hander. Okay? I know what you're looking for and I know what to look for to make sure you've seen it. So I do know. If you're not looking, I'll also know because you'll come around that bend, you'll suddenly then see the tractor and then you'll shit yourselves, panic, and there'll be dust and sparks going everywhere. All right? Don't do that, please. It does happen, but rarely. No substitute for miles. Okay, when you're out with your tutors, it can be frustrating for them, I know, that sometimes you're not putting the mileage in. You go to them for a week and you're there, you have your couple of hours session out, you have a really good day, everything goes well, you've got a few things to work on, and then you see them again in 6 weeks' time, and in that time you haven't ridden your motorbike. Where's your skill level going to be? Down there somewhere. Mileage, folks. You need to get the miles in. I know we're all busy people, but try and get the bike out whenever you can, and on wet days. Get the thing out. It does wash. I appreciate we don't like salt and stuff. I get that, but it does work. There's no substitute for mileage, I promise you. And it's interesting, the amount of people that do their advanced tests and then drop back into the old ways of not doing the big mileages again. We get people that come through, and I know because I talk to them when we have a cup of tea or whatever at the end. They say, oh yeah, well, I've done 3,000 miles this year because I want to get my test. Well, what do you normally do? I do about 500. And I know for a fact the following year they're going to do 500 miles. And I guarantee you, in 3 or 4 years' time, they'll be nowhere near IAM test standard. Hey, newsflash, guess what the IAM are looking at doing? The ROSPA route. So it may well be you'll end up doing 3-year, because the insurance industry are very keen on it, because they're looking at it and going, hang on a minute, we got ROSPA doing this. I'm not saying ROSPA's better, don't get me wrong, I'm not having that argument. What I'm saying is you've got ROSPA that are doing a retest every 3 years, okay, and IAM aren't yet, but I think it will come because at the end of the day we know that people's skill levels do drop off. Why as a police motorcyclist do I get retested every 12 months without fail? I know on Meldreth Manor day or Meldreth show day I will look a bit bedraggled by the time I arrive at the show because I'll have my day out on a police bike being tested and being pushed. Okay, so if I look bloodshot eyes and very tired, that is why, all right? But we get tested every 12 months to make sure we've kept our standard because it's important. You can't afford it to drop off. You can't. It's important to keep the mileage up. Keep enjoying it. Get out there and enjoy it. Positioning. These are some of the common things I see. Don't just think about your positioning for bends. I know you can nail those and near side for right-handers and out towards the centre for your left-handers. Maximise your view, put yourself in a position where you can be seen, etc. Think about early lines of travel for parked cars. It frustrates me when I see people ride up to the back of a parked car and then do this and go round it, when they could have gone nice and early, nice and smooth out, down the outside and back in again. Early lines of travel. The moment car drivers see headlights coming towards them, because don't forget I'm with you, they'll see two, all right? They will suddenly think, "Ee!" I'll stop and I'll give up. 9 times out of 10, and we'll have a free passage through. We keep the wheels turning, makes it smoother, makes it easier for you. Every time you have to put your foot down is another possibility you could do something wrong. So try and keep things moving, put the bike in an early position, okay? Dominate that road with your road positioning. Tell other car drivers, I'm here, I'm a motorcyclist, this is my part of road, bugger off. Okay, I'm allowed to be here, thank you very much, and I'm keeping it. All right, don't get me wrong, if it's coming at you and it's big and ugly, move. All right, but if not, try and hang it out there and own the road. Speed, don't be shy, show me what you can do. Always say this when I do my briefing, if it's a national speed limit road and we can do 60 mile an hour safely, let's be doing it please. Okay, not 45, not 50, let's get there. Let's roll it down there at 60 miles an hour. All right, I don't want knees down, I don't want wheelies, all right, but what I do want is purposeful riding. Show me what you can do, all right? I only get to see you once, hopefully, all right? So it's important I see it, really, really good. Brakes, yeah, now then. The roads that I tend to take people on, I'm not going to give you the routes, but I know a lot of you know them anyway, because they're regular, they're local roads. Gives you an opportunity to demonstrate something we call ease and squeeze. All right, that's the balance of the bike on the throttle without needing to brake. Okay, a lot of the roads you're on, I guarantee you can ride them solely on the gearbox and throttle sense alone. You don't need the brakes. Don't get me wrong, as I always say, if you have to brake, bloody brake. All right, but other than that, ease and squeeze, throttle sense. Okay, blend the bends together using the throttle sense on the bike. Keep it smooth, keep it fluent, keep it nice and fluid. All right, I shouldn't really be able to detect your gear changing from what the attitude of the bike is. I might be able to hear it, I might be able to see your foot moving, but I shouldn't be able to see all of this malarkey going on. All right? Gives me a clue about what you know what you're doing. Acceleration, yeah, accurately deployed, be positive. When we are leaving, lower speed limits, your 30s and your 40s, please, please, and this goes for all of you, whatever, regardless of test, be positive. We've got a lot of car drivers out there that are stuck in one speed, and that's flat out as fast as they can go without seeing a camera van. Okay? They will be behind you, they'll be chewing your number plate. They will be able to read the BS safety certificate number on your exhaust pipe. All right? When you're leaving 30s, be deliberate with your acceleration. Like I say, don't want wheelies, but be deliberate, because what that does is, in the psychological effect up here with the brain of the car driver, albeit the car driver's brain is a lot smaller. What happens is, as you open those throttles, you create a distance. And by creating that distance, the car driver goes, oh, they're going fast. And guess what? You won't see them again, because you'd have left them behind you. Created a nice safety gap for yourself, and off you go. I was on a car test only last week going through Arrington in the 30s. We came down the hill in the 50s, into the 40s, then into the 30s. As we came from the 50s into the 40s, this car came flying over the hill behind us. I took to my mirror, thought, they're not hanging about. BMW. Got down into the 30s. Nice and into the 30s we were, bang on, sure enough, as soon as the BMW got clear of the first island, out he goes, overtake. And he must have gone through the 30s. I think he's probably 60, nearly 70 mile an hour by the time I could see him in the distance. It wasn't a police BMW either. All right, but there are people out there that do that. You know, they just have no respect for it. So just be mindful, be very careful. But get that speed on when you can. Overtaking. Anticipate and try and plan ahead. I know on test it's very difficult because you are restricted by the speed limits. We're all restricted by speed limits, but particularly on test, I know we have to do everything within the guidelines and as set, all right? But I need to know you're looking for them. Try and anticipate, try and think. I want to see you closing up the gap, thinking, yeah, there might be an opportunity. Oh, no, there isn't, then we drop back again. As long as you're looking for it, it ticks the box. If you can't get it because they're up to the national, well, that's it. We can't do that. I cannot, you know, the IM are not going to come down and start criticising me or you. Why didn't you do that overtake? Because the car was doing 60 miles an hour and that's the speed limit. Ah, okay. They're not going to say, well, you should have gone anyway. They're not about that. And we're told very clearly that's not what you're supposed to do, nor should you do it. But when we're coming out of bends following slower vehicles and stuff, think about having that gear ready. I'll listen for the engine note change. I'll be ready thinking, are they looking? And 9 times out of 10, normally what I see is your shoulders come up. You're like, oh, yeah, right, here we go. You get very excited and very animated. You do. I look for these subtle things. I know. So, bends. Think about what if. All right, I know these are old slides, but they are so relevant to today. Just by putting yourself in the right place gives you the chance. You can be seen, they can see you, you can get on with more of the road, and you can carry more speed. It's not all about speed, but that's what it allows you to do. It allows you to predict the movement of other traffic. Okay, you will see them before they see you, and hopefully if they're not on their phone or playing an electronic game or in a Tesla, not looking at anything at all, you may be able to crack on and be safe. All right, so think about your positioning, your bend work. Incidentally, the statistic hasn't changed. 47% of motorcycle collisions are single vehicle. Okay, in other words, the biker is the author of his or her demise. They just get the bend wrong. They run out of road. They don't think about it. They're just not able to realise that the bend is actually sharper than it is. They run out of road. They panic. They either stand the bike up and go straight in the ditch. They're going to miss out, aren't they? Or they're going to come out the bend on the wrong side of the road and hit something coming the other way. Okay. As it says there, my favourite little saying, slow in, fast out, fast in, carried out. Because that is generally the way it works. Bikes do not like scrubbing speed through corners. They don't. Okay, initial name's Marquez. They won't do it. All right, they don't like doing it. And just remember, despite all of the technology we now have available to us, with cornering ABS and all this other stuff, at some point, Newton will take over. All right? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Okay, we've never rewritten the rule book. Newton is in charge. Okay, eventually your tyre grip will run out and something will go wrong. Okay, as is one of those favourite quotes. We've all heard it so many times. The only limiting factor on a motorcycle's ability is the nut that holds the handlebars. You lot, all right, or me. Okay, so just be careful. Smooth is often faster. What do you want to wear? That was me when I was on my diet last year. That's quite good. Didn't last, but there we are. What shall I wear? For test purposes, I do like to see people in proper motorcycle kit. I've not seen anybody yet that hasn't turned up in it. I don't see many people in fluorescence, okay? You don't have to, but all I'd say to you is just bear in mind, and the reason the pound sign is up there, having been through a court procedure or coroner's procedure or whatever it might be, eventually there comes the payment to your families. God forbid anything should nasty very much happen to you, or even you have a very significant life-changing injury to you. One of the things that happens is an insurance company will come to us as the police service and they will want photographs of what you were wearing and they will want a description of it, and they will send me a very simple check sheet. And all this is the civil claim. Were they wearing motorcycle boots? Yes. Bear in mind the insurance operative has now got this back on their desk and they've got a checkbook. Were they wearing motorcycle boots? Yes. Gloves? Yes. Jacket? Yes. Motorcycle trousers? Yes. Oh God, blimey. Helmet? Yes. He's thinking that checkbook's getting, like this. Fluorescent jacket, yes. Oh my word. They know that check's going to be quite big. The moment they can start putting crosses in those boxes, no florry, no boots, no gloves, the check starts getting smaller because they are very much these days of what did you do to keep yourself safe? Okay? Likewise, no different in the car world. Okay? The moment they get information through and we prove that you weren't wearing your seatbelt and it's a no-fault accident on your part, how much is your compensation claim going to be? A lot smaller than it would have been if you had your seatbelt on. Simple as. That's the way they work. Because they want to make money. They don't want to give it away.
Where can you get bright pink? Because
it's difficult. No, it's true. No, it is true. I know. Yeah.
Motorcycling, actually.
Yes, you can buy it. You can find it on.
It is difficult, isn't it?
You can find it online, but it's true. The RAC were one of the first rescue services that were going to have bright pink vans until all their drivers said we're not driving them. I don't know if that's an old wives' tale or not, but that's what I was told. But it is true that pink, in fact, is the best colour because it's one of those colours that is not natural in nature. It stands out much more. Okay, there are various things. If you look on the Think website, where you can see pictures of riders coming down through the trees with the headlight on and a florry on, completely lost. Can you see the motorcyclist? And even I have looked at it and gone, "There's not one there, is there? Is there? Oh yeah, bloody hell!" You can get lost even in a florry, but the chances are that by wearing one, at some point, it will do more good than it will harm. All right, is all I'll say to you. So do whatever you can to look after yourselves and make sure you've got the right kit on, because it is important. It will save you a lot of mess. As I always often say at this point, we're regularly in contact with our friends at A&E and certainly the senior consultancy staff, because they provide us statements with injuries and all this kind of things and outcomes for people. And they often tell us, you bring me someone into my A&E department with a broken leg, I'll fix that for you. No problem at all. Strap it, pin it, whatever we have to do with it, we can fix a broken leg, broken arm, whatever you like, we'll do it. Bring me someone in a gravel rash, don't want them, send them away. The cost to deal with that is huge. Infection, the way they deal with it, and it's no joke. Someone going in with gravel rash, not wearing the right stuff on a bike, okay, it's Brillo pads and scrubbing brushes to get the grit and the dirt out so it doesn't get infected. It's nasty. It is nasty. All right. So anybody you see riding around in shorts and things, not a good idea. We do get them, but not a good idea. So we had hands up earlier for pillions, didn't we? How many of you had bespoke pillion training?
Is there bespoke training basic?
There is, yes. But you have.
Yeah, I take referees on the back of the bike and they have to have had training and I have to see their certificate before they get on the back.
Right, that's for them doing their bit when you're out doing cycling.
Yes.
Cyclist scores. Yeah.
London Triathlon
But it's rare. The rest of us all know right now we can go out there, get on our bikes, pop someone on the back. What training have we had? None whatsoever. Do you ever tell them? Do you actually ever say to them, keep your hands on the hand grips, sit there, you don't need to do anything? Because I've heard some horrendous stories. I've never experienced it myself, where people have said, we got to this bend, we started going around this left hand, and next thing you know, the bike went like that because the pillion started to lean. They just have to sit there. The bike does the work. You don't have to do anything. I will tell a little story about a certain very nice lady who was on the back of my bike when we got to the Hawkston junction down here, and she took her feet off the pegs and thought she had to put her feet down when we got to the junction. Didn't you? Yes, you did. Oh, I thought I had to put my feet down. I didn't tell her, but I never told her. I just said, sit there, keep your hands on there. I never thought she'd think, oh, I thought I'd got to put my feet. She would never reach, because I was sitting on the back of there's a Suzuki then. She'd never have put her feet down anyway. But you keep your feet on the pegs, hands on the rails, and off you go. You don't need to do anything, do you? But who's been trained? None of us. Have those pillions been told what to expect, what to do? That's the main reason I have comms. So if I've got the kids on the bike or if Helen's on the back, so I'm going to have a quick overtake here, just hold on, poof. So they're just ready for that shove. Talk to them, let them know. Or even a quick tap, you know, just a hand off. If I give you a tap, it means I'm going to be looking for an overtake, just hang on. All right? Hang on, whatever you do. Grit your teeth, hang on, love, here we go. Okay, pillion's not allowed on test, by the way. I have actually been asked a couple of times. I have been asked, can I bring my wife with me? No. Those of you interested in IM first, it's a very, very, very good achievement. What I would say to you is this: it has to be perfect. That's what the first is for, simple as that. It must be without mistake. I have awarded a few. It does come. It can come on your first initial test if you're really very, very good, but the test is perfect from start to finish. There are no missed things, there are no errors, there are no slightly wrong in the bend or whatever's. It's from start to finish, everything is there in a nice, neat, very tidy package. Okay, if you want it, go after it. It has to be right, and there cannot be any fools. A couple of final stories. Remember this one from last year? Those of you who weren't here, Barrington Hill, over there. No overtaking zone with this sign, one on either side of the road, and then about 450 metres there's two further signs with a little end underneath them, which means when you enter that zone to when you get the other end, and when it says end, you can't overtake anything. So I'm following, in this occasion it was a lady, down the hill, we're in a police vehicle, there's a slow moving vehicle ahead of us, we get into this zone, view opens, she goes and overtakes. Thinking, that's interesting. Did we not just go through these signs? And me knowing the road anyway, I thought, very interesting. We're actually going on an FLO visit to a person in Barrington whose wife died on that hill. She rolled a car over and got thrown out. We stopped the lady in Barrington Village, and ticket books at the ready sort of thing. Do you know why we've stopped you? No, not really. Well, we stopped you, overtook going down the hill. Yeah, I did. Yeah, the car was going slow enough. I just went past it. You're in a no overtaking zone. Well, yeah, I am, officer, but I don't drive a red car. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Other things we see, when you see angry drivers, people that get upset and very, very annoyed about Mr. Policeman stopping them to tell them off because they know they're in the wrong. The speeding driver on the M11 one night. Okay, it wasn't me, it was one of my colleagues from Essex, actually, not from here, who stops a speeding driver on the M11, came past an unmarked car. They engage with it, lit it up. It does an emergency stop on the hard shoulder, as you would, of course, because you're angry now because you've been caught doing something you shouldn't have done. The driver's door comes flying open, and the two officers in the car have a very quick conversation on the lines of, this is going to be an absolute nightmare because he's, what have you stopped me for? Oh, the road's empty, there's nothing there, it's dark, I'm in a hurry. Blah, 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 blah. So they let him do this in the back of the car. And once he'd finished, the officer, now then, sir, we detected you at 115 miles an hour over a standard mile. Therefore, that's an average speed, so at periods of time you would have been going faster than 115, slightly less. Have you got your driver's licence with you? Yes, I have. Well, could you show it to me, please? Hold on. Ticket. Out comes the driving licence, filled it all out, lovely old job. Officer says, because you're travelling in excess of the speed limit, and because you are 115 miles an hour, I have to report you for the consideration of the question of prosecuting you for excessive speed. That's the spiel we have to give. And I'm going to caution you, you don't have to say anything, may harm in defence, do not mention when questioned, something later in court, blah, blah, blah. And we will send a summons through the post to you. Why can't I have a ticket? Because you're going too fast for a ticket, sir. We can only issue tickets up to a certain speed, blah, blah, blah. Explain that all to him, and off he goes. And he puts on the bottom of the ticket A and an H at the bottom. The officer just denotes the ticket A and H like that. What's this A and H here for? What have you put that for? He says, just to remind me when we get to court, sir, and you're in the box and you wish to defend yourself and have a go at myself and my colleague, just remind us that you are in fact an arsehole, sir. So, sure enough, they go to court. They go through the process. The prosecution doing their bit, the officers have given their evidence, the device was calibrated, there's a video, blah, 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 blah. It then, of course, comes to the ticket. And the officers are there, and the officer who wrote the ticket out, he knows what's coming. And the barrister's, he's lost it. There's no two ways about it. The barrister's lost the case. This guy's going to get done whatever happens. But he's thinking the one thing we can do now is just have a pop at the police, last possible attempt, and obviously bring out the fact that he called his client an arsehole in the car. So, the barrister says to the officer, with a bit of a smirk on his face, so officer, is this a ticket you gave my client, the notice of intended prosecution? Yes, that's correct. And that's my client's details on there? Yes, that's correct. That's the offence as made out? Yes, that's correct. Is that indeed your signature at the very bottom of the ticket there, officer? Yes, that is the ticket I issued, and yes, that is my signature. And the officer's thinking, I know what's coming. He says, officer, at the bottom of the ticket, there's an A and an H. Would you like to explain to the court what that's for? Because I believe it's this point you said to my client he was an arsehole. I said, well, you obviously know your client better than I do, sir, but actually it's agitated and hostile. Get in! Come on! How good is that? So, before we go into questions and answer session, folks, some very, very important things. In my daily job, I see a lot of mess and I see a lot of carnage. The majority of the time, it is always, always avoidable because someone has done something they shouldn't have done. As motorcyclists have already said, you know you are vulnerable. What are you going to do to look after yourselves? Okay, I'm passionate about everything two wheels. I love it. I eat, sleep, drink it, and I get to work with it, thankfully. But sometimes the circumstances are not very nice. Please do not make yourselves a one-line headline. All right? Don't be that headline in the paper that then follows about 2 weeks later by a message from the family saying how sorry they are. All right? Look after yourselves and think about what it is you're doing. And bear in mind, as motorcyclists, you still have the freedom of the open road. Cambridgeshire is one of the worst places now in the country for traffic, unless you're on a motorcycle. You will get where you want to go and you will get there safely if you do the right things, as long as you're prepared to look after yourselves and think about it. Don't trust that car that's coming towards you with its indicator on, that it's seen you. You do not know what they're thinking. You do not know what their state of mind is. I've heard it from motorcyclists time and time again. I had eye contact with the car driver. No, you bloody didn't. When I do the next talk, I've got some slides I'm going to put in, which is a series of events that occurred with 3 separate crashes in the county last year. They're not quite come to conclusion yet with court and things, so we can't deliver them yet. But when I get them, they are 3 collisions that are a mirror image of one another at 3 locations in the county. But they're an absolute replica, blueprint, where a van or something similar has sat in a junction waiting to turn right. Cars have gone through and they've turned on the motorcyclist. All 3 motorcyclists died in all those 3 separate collisions, all within 5 weeks of one another. You are those motorcyclists. Be very careful, keep your eyes open and don't trust anybody. Okay? You have not got eye contact with them, you don't know where they are in their world. Okay? Be careful, please. Please, please be careful. Always be in a position where you can see and where you can be seen. But always my favourite strapline, never be remembered. Okay? We don't want the public, when we get to these scenes, if God forbid you have been unfortunate enough to be in a collision, all right, we don't want members of the public going, well, I'm not surprised he crashed, he came past me like a complete idiot. All right, because what does a jury remember? They don't remember the technical bloke stood there going, well, we calculated skid marks, speeds, distances, views, and blah, 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 because it goes over their head. They remember the one witness that stands in that box and says, well, he was riding like an idiot. That's what they'll remember, okay, even though you know you were doing it right, because people's perception of your riding is different to what you think it might be. So look after yourselves. Keep your standards up, all right? If you're out on the social rides, if you're out with a friend or whatever, whoever it is you ride with, if your bends aren't going well, be brave enough to have someone tell you. All right, you all look after each other. You're all a group here together. You're all here for one reason, to enjoy motorcycling as a fun pastime, all right, which you can do safely, no problem at all. But if any of you see any of your friends in here doing something wrong, tell them. If they're doing it repetitively, tell them.
We're all very down now, aren't you? Destroyed you all.
Going home in the car.
Leave us your bike. On a serious note, folks, I know it's a bit of a negative point. It's not supposed to be. The reason for it is I know Chris is nodding an awful lot. This is all about your abilities and where you're at and the training you've had. Okay, and motorcycling is there to be enjoyed. You have got that freedom. And don't forget, it's special. There's an awful lot of males out there in particular, I'm afraid, who would love to do what we all do in here, but they're not allowed to because they've got a management team at home that says, oh no, you're not. It's dangerous. It's not bloody dangerous, not to get the right training. If you've got people you know, friends and family coming through, make sure they get the right training. And that particularly means CBT. CBT, compulsory, big B in the middle, basic training. There is a difference in basic. There are some places that do enough to tick the box. There are those that will do more to start your riding career. You want them going to the ones that do the more. It's all the same price. Make sure they get the right training. Make sure they ride in the right kit. Make sure they're out with the right sort of people. If you've got those people coming through, push them on. The motorcyclist industry, I can tell you now, right this very minute, are absolutely cacking themselves. Because unfortunately their rider population is doing what? Dying, getting older. We're getting older. And they're trying to get those people in. How many years ago would you have gone to a bike show and found a load of really very nice 250s and 310s? You wouldn't, would you? You wouldn't find them. You were on your standard step throughs and your 125s, and that was it. And then it was a big jump up to something else, and the odd little 500. Now we've got these super looking things. The bike industry know they've got to adapt. They've got to move forward and get people in. The government have even got it in their strategy. They have a motorcycle strategy, believe it or not. I was party to it and helped develop it. It clearly says we want motorcyclists on the road. Reason? What do? Brake congestion. We don't take up so much room. If you have more motorcycles on the road, less queues. Simple as.
I know my £85 road fund licence, my SUV is 30 quid. So that doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
When I rang up Cambridge Town Hall about where I could park at their brand new facility, they said, oh, there's a million bike places, but not one single motorcycle.
No, there isn't.
So they don't really get that much.
No, I think there are certain places in the country locally that do more. Certainly do a lot more for the biking population. Nationally, the government don't have a great sway on motorcycle parking and local parking issues because they just don't. It's been passed back to local authorities. It is interesting that Cambridgeshire, we talk about being eco-friendly and helpful. You find a bike park in Cambridge. Parking rides haven't got any. They've got all the bike lockers and things, but there's no motorcycle dedicated parking. In fact, I've had tests there, and I've had people come. I've had the bloke there's a big guy who works over at the Trumpington one who said, you can't park there, mate. You're not supposed to leave your bike there. I'm only here for a few minutes, mate. I'll call the police. That'd be interesting. That's what I said to him. That'd be interesting. Oh, you copper? Yes, thanks. Oh, okay. Off he goes. But he didn't want to park in there. That was in that little waiting lane by where I'm in. Didn't want me there. Couldn't park there. Well, where will I put it then? You know? A few supermarkets now you start seeing bike spaces, but it's again don't see them all the time. It's rare.
What about theft? Because clearly that's become a huge issue in London.
There is it's here as well. It's here as well. We are regularly coming across chop shops where they literally what they do is they go after the bikes, they break them and they send them abroad and they sell the bits. Which is why when you go on track days ordinarily, when you go through scrutineering, they will check the bike and they look for engine numbers and things, see if they've been ground off. And if you've got a bike there with a ground off engine number, you won't be able to run it. Because there's so many stolen engines out there. And we know what's happening to them. A lot of them go abroad. I remember when I sold those of you who tested by me had my red 1250 Suzuki, I sold that to a guy from Poland. Came here in his van, I was thinking, I'm not liking this at all. Bloke turned up in a really nice VW Crafter van. Open the back up. Yes, I buy your bike. Does it turn the ignition on? You want to see the mileage? Didn't want. I said I'll start it. No, don't start it. Just see. I just want to see the mileage. Yeah, lovely. Turned it off. Gave me the cash. Signed the paperwork. Pushed it up the ladder that he borrowed off next door's drive into his truck. Put it in the back of the van. Leant it up against the wall. This is something I'd washed, polished, cherished all its life. Put the ratchet strap round it and just went every ratchet as it bent it in. I thought, he's giving you the money. Don't worry about it. It's not your problem. And off he went. But before he went, I said to him, "Well, all these car parts in here. I come over every 3 weeks," he said. "I buy car parts, second-hand car parts from various bits and pieces for cars back in Poland. Your bike," he said, "I double my money. I double my money." Just like that. And that's what we do. He'll sell it over there, and we know for well they can get stuff here. They can strip them, and away they go. There's still cars to order. There's still cars in particular, bikes as well. They'll have engines out of them, and they'll flog them. They'll make thousands of them. Because bikes, unfortunately, the second-hand, well, not second-hand, but the parts market for a bike, they did it. I don't know if any of you saw it. It was a few years ago. Bike Magazine did a story on the GSX 1000 Suzuki, where they broke it down into spares and said, "Here it is out the showroom, 12,995. Here it is in parts, 23,000 somewhat." Well, hang on a minute. That one's built, that one's in bits. How can that be so expensive? That's why these things are worth so much money, and that's why they ship them. They break in and ship them. That's what happens to cars. It's very rare you'll see a car come out of the UK going out abroad. If it's stolen, it won't go out. Very rarely go out whole. They go out in bits. We sometimes recover dashboards and engines and all sorts of. We had a C63 Mercedes over at Wiz Beach not that long ago. It was found in lock-up because it had a tracker on it. We found the doors. We couldn't find. We never did find the body shell. We found the doors, the engine, the wheels, gearbox, all broken, ready to go. And they'll get good money for it.
Yeah, but that big ground van, the Shell near me, the Polish car transport turns up every few weeks. He's there for a week, and each morning more and more vehicles get on it of all sorts, and then he's gone. And then and then a different one will come. So it's a known routine.
They do, because they can get a lot. They can buy the car so cheap here. There's a guy travelling down here. I was coming home today. There's an open back Arctic with cars in it. The rearmost car was a 740i BMW, blue one, on a might have been an 11 plate. Can't remember now. It's irrelevant. But that was on Polish plates. That's going out of the country. He'll be flogging that. Make a fortune on it when he gets home.
Recent stuff.
No, it's all sorts. It's all sorts really. It's whatever somebody wants or needs parts for. Generally, is what they do. And they did an experiment again. It was in one of the magazines where they put a new Ducati in the Cathedral Square in Peterborough, and they set it, got the alarm, set the alarm, and deliberately set up this thing where a van was going to turn up, 3 blokes were going to jump out, lift this thing up, the alarm was going to sound. They were going to put it in the back of the van and see if anyone phoned the police. How many people phoned the police? None. Nobody. And it's opportunist. I mean, we had a neighbour not that long ago. He had his Skoda Octavia stolen off his driveway. Never been found. That'd be in bits somewhere.
The house still
But
keys.
well, they did was they got the key. They put the keys by the letterbox. Put the keys on the top. Folks, no big story. Hide your keys. Who goes home and goes boom when you walk in the door? Don't do it. Honestly, because if you do that, they'll have it. Gone. They'll have this stuff away. That's how they do it. Or they'll break. If you've got something really, really nice, they'll break in. They'll steal the keys. They will steal the keys. But they.
My neighbour's house took his keys. He had them in the kitchen drawer.
Yeah.
And took his Subaru.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll have that. He said they'll use that for crime. Can't like that. They use it for crime. If it's something quick, they'll use it for crime. If it's something desirable, they'll break it and sell it. That's what generally happens. But hide. Put your keys in places that people wouldn't find them. You don't. You know. As long as you know where they are, that's the most important thing. You're the only one who wants them. But, particularly if it's BMW or something like that, with modern ignition systems now, you need something like that for it to work. Because the key and the ignition have to work together. Without it, they're dead. They don't recognise each other. Do what you can. Any other questions? Marvellous.
Well, just
Nice to
say,
see you all.
thank you very much, Simon.
No problem.
For your time. I know you're a very busy chap. And all you do in the police force and the philosophy and the IAM and the bike stage, I'm surprised the management team actually see you occasionally.
That's what I mean.
That's what she likes.
Imparting your views and skills on advanced riding. So thank you very much.
Out there.